The courtroom was a crucible of anticipation, its polished wood and stern silence barely containing the storm about to break. Cameras flashed like lightning, capturing every angle as Liam Carver, the billionaire mastermind behind NeuroSync, took his seat at the defendant's table. This wasn't just a trial, it was a spectacle, a collision of titans that promised to shake the foundations of power and perception. Carver, a tech mogul whose unfiltered Synapse posts had made him a global icon, faced Tamfan Margaret Ellison, a judicial titan known for her iron grip on order. But no one could have predicted how quickly the proceedings would spiral into chaos, with Carver's defiance igniting a fire that would burn far beyond the courtroom walls. This was the Maverick's defiance, and the world was watching. The air was thick with tension as the trial began. Carver, founder of NeuroSync, a company promising to fuse human minds with artificial intelligence, and the social platform Synapse, was no stranger to controversy. His posts, often brash and provocative, had sparked lawsuits, boycotts, and adoration in equal measure. Now, he faced a high-stakes case, accused of misleading investors with exaggerated claims about NeuroSync's human trials. The allegations were serious, threatening his empire and his reputation as a visionary. Yet Carver strode into the courtroom with the swagger of a man who'd already won, his tailored navy suit and sly grin radiating unshakable confidence. Across the room, Tamfan Margaret Ellison presided from the bench, her black robes a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around her. With decades of experience in high-profile cases, Ellison was a figure of calm authority, her piercing gaze enough to silence even the most belligerent attorneys. She was known for her unwavering commitment to the law, unmoved by wealth or fame. But today, the stakes were higher. The gallery was packed with journalists, tech enthusiasts waving NeuroSync banners, and critics clutching exposés about the company's animal testing scandals. The nation's eyes were fixed on this courtroom, and both Carver and Ellison knew one misstep could redefine their legacies. As the bailiff called the court to order, Carver leaned back in his chair, scanning the room with a mix of amusement and disdain. His legal team, a squadron of sharp-suited attorneys, whispered nervously, aware that their client's unpredictability was their greatest liability. The prosecution, led by a seasoned litigator named Clara Hensley, opened with a scathing indictment, accusing Carver of reckless deception that had cost investors millions. Mr. Carver's promises of a mind-machine revolution were not just ambitious, Hensley declared, they were fraudulent, built on unproven science and unchecked hubris. Carver's lead attorney, a silver-haired veteran named Richard Tate, countered with a spirited defense. Liam Carver is a pioneer, Tate said, his voice booming. NeuroSync is pushing the boundaries of human potential, and innovation always comes with risks. My client's statements were visionary, not deceitful. The jury, a mix of skeptical professionals and wide-eyed tech fans, scribbled notes, their faces betraying the divide in the room. Some saw Carver as a hero, while others saw him as a conman. Ellison, her expression unreadable, banged her gavel to silence the murmurs. We're here to examine evidence, not egos, she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. Mr. Carver, you'll have your chance to speak, but you will do so within the rules of this court. Carver nodded, but his smirk suggested he had other plans. The gallery buzzed, phones already out, ready to capture the first spark of drama. The questioning began, with Hensley pressing Carver on NeuroSync's trials. You claimed your technology could restore memory in Alzheimer's patients, she said, holding up a Synapse post. Yet internal reports show your trials caused severe side effects in animal subjects. Were you aware of these risks when you made those claims? Carver leaned forward, his voice calm but edged with defiance. Risks are part of progress. Miss Hensley, every breakthrough, from penicillin to space travel, came with setbacks. NeuroSync is saving lives. Not gambling with them? The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Ellison's eyes narrowed. Mr. Carver, she said, her tone measured. Answer the question directly. Were you aware of the side effects? Carver's smirk widened. I was aware of the challenges, Your Honor, but I don't dwell on obstacles, I overcome them. That's why Neurosync is light years ahead of its competitors. A few supporters in the gallery clapped, but Ellison's gavel slammed down. This is not a TED Talk. Mr. Carver, she snapped, keep your answers relevant, or I'll hold you in contempt. The rebuke hung in the air, and for a moment, Carver's confidence faltered. His attorneys exchanged uneasy glances. Sensing trouble was ahead, Hensley seized the moment, projecting a leaked Neurosync document onto a screen. It detailed failed trials, with animal subjects suffering seizures and neurological damage. This is what you call progress, she asked, her voice dripping with scorn. The gallery gasped, and a woman in the back whispered, He's finished. Carver's jaw clenched, but he leaned back, crossing his arms. You're cherry-picking data to make a headline, he said. Those trials were early stage. We've made breakthroughs since then. Breakthroughs your narrow mind can't grasp. The crowd erupted, with some cheering and others booing. Ellison's gavel slammed again, louder this time. Mr. Carver, I've warned you, she said, her voice rising. This court will not tolerate theatrics. Answer the question or face consequences. Carver's eyes flashed with defiance. Theatrics, he replied, his voice sharp. I'm telling the truth, Your Honor. If you want me to play by your rules, maybe you should update them for the world we live in. My companies don't just move markets, they move humanity forward. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. His attorneys looked pale, while Hensley smirked, sensing an opening. Ellison's face remained impassive, but her grip on the gavel tightened. The tension was unbearable, like a storm cloud ready to burst. Journalists scribbled furiously, their pens scratching like sparks. The gallery was a sea of flashing phones, capturing every word, every glance. Back in the control booth, a court technician whispered, This is going viral. But no one could predict how far Carver would push, or how Ellison would respond. The stage was set, and the maverick was ready to defy the rules of the game. The courtroom was a powder keg, and Liam Carver was striking matches with every word. On the polished oak bench, Thumbfan Margaret Ellison gripped her gavel, her calm facade cracking under the weight of Carver's unrelenting defiance. The gallery, a volatile mix of supporters and skeptics, hung on every syllable, their phones glowing like a constellation of tiny stars. What had begun as a high-stakes trial about Neurosync's alleged fraud was now a battle of wills, with Carver's audacity pushing the room to the brink. The air was electric, thick with the promise of an explosion, and no one, not the attorneys, not the journalists, not even Ellison herself could look away. Clara Hensley, the lead prosecutor, stood poised at her podium, her eyes glinting with the confidence of someone who'd just landed a critical blow. She'd projected a damning Neurosync document onto the courtroom screen, its stark text detailing neurological damage in animal trials. Mr. Carver, she said, her voice sharp. You told investors your technology was ready to revolutionize human cognition. Yet this report, dated just months before your claims, shows catastrophic failures. Were you lying then? Or are you lying now? Carver leaned forward, his smirk returning like a weapon drawn. Lying, he said, his tone mocking. I don't lie. Miss Hensley, I dream, and dreams don't come with the safety manual. Those trials were a stepping stone. Messy, sure, but necessary. You want to crucify me for pushing boundaries? Fine, but don't pretend you understand what it takes to change the world. His words were a gauntlet, thrown not just at Hensley, but at the entire room. A few supporters in the gallery cheered, their voices quickly drowned by Ellison's gavel. Enough, Ellison barked. her voice slicing through the noise. Mr. Carver, I've warned you repeatedly to keep your answers relevant. This is a court of law, not a stage for your manifesto. Answer the question directly, or I'll hold you in contempt. Her eyes locked onto Carver's, unyielding. But the billionaire didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back, crossing his arms, and let out a low chuckle that echoed like a challenge. Contempt, Carver replied, his voice dripping with disdain. That's rich. Your honor. You talk about the law, but this trial is a farce. You're not judging me, you're judging progress. Neurosync, Synapse, my transit network. They're reshaping humanity while you're stuck policing paperwork. The gallery erupted, a chaotic mix of gasps, cheers, and boos. A man in a Neurosync cap shouted, "Tell 'em, Liam," while a woman nearby hissed, "Sit down, you fraud." Phones flashed, capturing the moment from every angle. Ellison's face remained impassive, but her knuckles whitened around the gavel. "Mr. Carver," she said, her voice low and dangerous, "you are treading on thin ice. This court will not tolerate disrespect. One more outburst, and you'll face consequences beyond a warning." Her words were a steel trap, but Carver seemed to relish the pressure. His lead attorney, Richard Tate, leaned toward him, whispering urgently, but Carver waved him off with a flick of his wrist. Hensley, sensing blood in the water, pressed harder. She tapped her tablet, and the screen shifted to a Synapse post where Carver had boasted, "Neurosync will make Alzheimer's a memory by next year." This was posted after the failed trials, she said, her tone accusatory. "You knew the risks, yet you misled investors. How do you justify that?" The gallery leaned forward, the silence heavy with anticipation. Carver's eyes narrowed, but his voice was steady. "Justify? I don't need to justify vision. Mrs. Hensley, investors bet on me because I deliver. Synapse connects billions. My tunnels will redefine cities. And Neurosync, it's not just tech, it's salvation. You want to talk risks. The real risk is letting bureaucrats like you stifle innovation." His words were a rallying cry, and the gallery exploded again, supporters chanting "Liam, Liam," while others jeered. Ellison's gavel slammed down, the sound like a gunshot. "Silence," she roared, her composure fraying. "Mr. Carver, you are in contempt of this court. I've given you every chance to comply, and you've chosen to mock the law. This is not your boardroom, it's my courtroom." Her voice was a blade, but Carver's smirk only widened, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. "Your courtroom," he shot back, standing now, his presence filling the room. "This isn't justice, Your Honor. It's a circus, and you're the ringmaster, pretending to uphold the law while you crucify anyone who dares think bigger than your rulebook." The gallery was a madhouse, a cacophony of shouts and applause. A woman in the front row screamed, "He's right," while others yelled, "Throw him out." Journalists scribbled furiously, their pens racing to keep up. Back in the control booth, a technician whispered into a headset, "We need to cut the feed." But the court's media officer shook his head. "This is live, and it's history. Keep rolling." The red light on the main camera blinked steadily, capturing every second of the unraveling drama. Tate, Carver's attorney, stood, his face pale. "Your Honor, I request a recess," he said, his voice strained. But Ellison ignored him, her eyes fixed on Carver. "Mr. Carver," she said, her voice icy with authority, "you've crossed a line. I will not allow this court to be hijacked by your ego. You are in contempt, and I'm ordering your removal." She raised her gavel, but before it could fall, Carver stepped forward, his voice booming. "Removal. You think you can silence me? I'm Liam Carver. I built Synapse. I built Neurosync. And I'll build the future with or without your permission." The room froze, his words a thunderclap that left everyone stunned. Ellison's gavel crashed down. "Officer, remove Mr. Carver from this courtroom," she commanded, her voice unwavering. A burly court officer, his face a mask of professionalism, approached Carver, who stood defiant. His eyes locked on Ellison. The gallery was on its feet. A sea of flashing phones and raised voices. Tate grabbed Carver's arm, whispering, "Liam, don't do this." But Carver shook him off. "You're making a huge mistake." "Your Honor," Carver said, his voice low but venomous. "This isn't over. You'll see who writes history." The officer gestured for him to move, but Carver held his ground for a moment longer, his gaze sweeping the room. Then, with a final smirk, he turned and strode toward the exit, the officer trailing close behind. The gallery erupted, some chanting "Liam, Liam," while others booed, their voices blending into a chaotic roar. As the courtroom doors swung shut, the silence that followed was deafening. Ellison sat motionless, her gavel still in hand, her face a mask of resolve. But beneath the surface, her mind raced. She'd faced defiant defendants before, but none like Carver, a man whose wealth, influence, and audacity made him a force of nature. The journalists in the gallery were already filing stories, their headlines taking shape. "Billionaire booted from court in shocking showdown." The red light on the camera blinked on, a silent witness to the chaos. Backstage, the court's media team scrambled. "This is a disaster," one officer muttered, scrolling through Synapse posts already flooding with Carver defiance. Another, eyes glued to a monitor, said, "Disaster. This is a gold mine. The world's eating it up." Outside, Carver's legal team huddled in a hallway, their faces grim. "He's turned this into a circus," Tate said, rubbing his temples. "We need to spin this fast, or it's over." The internet, meanwhile, was ablaze. Within minutes, clips of Carver's exit hit Synapse, TikTok, and every platform in between. The hashtag Carver Defiance trended globally, with users posting memes of Carver's smirk, some set to dramatic music and others captioned, "When your lawyer begs you to stop, but you're Liam Carver." A viral TikTok showed Ellison's gavel slamming down, synced to a bass drop, with the caption, "Judge versus Billionaire, Round 1. On Instagram, a photo of Carver's final glare racked up millions of likes, captioned, "When you get kicked out but still own the room." Synapse, Carver's platform, was a war zone. His supporters rallied, accusing Ellison of abusing her power. "She's scared of Liam's vision." One post screamed, shared thousands of times. Others praised Carver's defiance, calling him the voice of the future. But critics were just as vocal, flooding the platform with clips of his outburst. Captioned, "Arrogance doesn't win trials." A meme of Carver's trembling hand went viral with the text, "When your ego crashes harder than your stock." Carver didn't stay silent. An hour after his exit, he posted on Synapse, "The law can't cage progress. I'll keep building, and history will judge the real criminals." The post garnered millions of views, with replies ranging from "You're a legend, Liam," to "Sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." The internet was a battlefield, and Carver's words were its ammunition. Back in the courtroom, Ellison adjourned the session, her voice steady but her hands trembling slightly. The gallery was still buzzing, with some whispering in awe and others in disbelief. A journalist in the front row typed furiously, her story already taking shape. "Liam Carver's courtroom meltdown. Genius or hubris?" As the crowd dispersed, one thing was clear. The Maverick had ignited a firestorm, and the flames were far from contained. The eruption had shaken the courtroom, but its echoes were just beginning. Carver's defiance wasn't just a moment. It was a declaration, one that would ripple through boardrooms, newsrooms, and the digital ether. Ellison had held her ground, but at what cost? And Carver, now outside the law's reach, was already plotting his next move. The world waited, breathless, for the next chapter of this seismic clash. The courtroom doors had slammed shut behind Liam Carver, but the shock waves of his defiance reverberated far beyond the polished oak and stern silence of Tam Fan, Margaret Ellison's domain. What had unfolded in that crucible of law and ego was no mere trial. It was a cultural detonation, a clash between a billionaire's unyielding ambition and a system built to enforce order. The Maverick's defiance, as the world now called it, had ignited a firestorm that burned through news feeds, boardrooms, and public discourse, reshaping perceptions of power, justice, and progress. The stage was empty, but the echoes of Carver's rebellion were only growing louder. In the immediate aftermath, the courtroom was a ghost town, its once electric atmosphere replaced by a heavy stillness. Journalists lingered in the gallery, their fingers flying across keyboards, filing stories that would dominate headlines for weeks. Court staff whispered in huddled groups, replaying the moment Carver's voice had thundered. You'll see who writes history. Up at the bench, Ellison sat alone, her gavel resting on the desk, her face a mask of resolve, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. She'd faced defiant defendants before, but none had turned her courtroom into a global spectacle with a single sentence. Outside, the digital world was ablaze. The hashtag Carver Defiance had not only trended, it had obliterated records, amassing tens of millions of posts across Synapse, TikTok, and every platform in between. Clips of Carver's exit looped endlessly, some paired with triumphant rock anthems, others with mocking sound effects of crashing cymbals. A viral TikTok showing Ellison's gavel slamming down as Carver smirked hit 15 million views in hours. Captioned, "When you try to judge a billionaire, but he judges you." On Instagram, a freeze frame of Carver's final glare, captioned Ego 100, Law 0, sparked a flood of likes and heated debates. Synapse, Carver's platform, was the epicenter of the storm. His supporters, a legion of tech enthusiasts and self-styled revolutionaries, rallied with posts hailing him as a martyr. "Liam's fighting for our future," one user declared. Their post shared thousands of times. "Ellison's just another cog in the machine trying to crush innovation." Others dug into Ellison's judicial record, painting her as a rigid enforcer of outdated laws. But Carver's critics were equally fierce, flooding Synapse with montages of his outbursts, captioned, "This is what happens when money buys arrogance." A meme of Carver's trembling hand, labeled, "When your lawyer's screaming stop, but you're too rich to listen," went viral, racking up millions of shares. Carver didn't let the chaos unfold without him. Hours after his ejection, as the internet churned, he posted on Synapse, "The law can chain a man, but it can't chain a vision. I build for tomorrow, not for judges stuck in yesterday." The post went viral, garnering over 20 million views in its first hour. Replies ranged from "You're unstoppable, Liam," to "You're a walking lawsuit, dude." A particularly biting comment, liked thousands of times, read, "History might write you, Liam, but it's not going to be a love story." The platform became a digital coliseum, with algorithms amplifying every jab, turning Carver Defiance into a global obsession. Mainstream media pounced, their headlines screaming, "Billionaire's courtroom, meltdown shocks. Nation and judge versus Maverick. Who won the showdown?" Pundits dissected the clash on evening news, some praising Ellison for upholding judicial integrity, others accusing her of overreacting to Carver's provocation. A prominent legal analyst wrote, "Carver's defiance wasn't just a tantrum. It was a challenge to the system's authority. Ellison had no choice but to respond. But at what cost?" Another, more sympathetic to Carver, argued, "He's a visionary under siege, punished for daring to dream beyond the law's reach." The fallout hit NeuroSync's corporate offices like a tidal wave. Insiders reported that the company's stock, already volatile after the fraud allegations, plummeted 8% in after-hours trading. Investors, rattled by Carver's public unraveling, began whispering about his fitness to lead. "He's a genius, but he's reckless," one shareholder told a business outlet, speaking anonymously. "This isn't a game, it's our money on the line." NeuroSync's PR team issued a carefully worded statement. "Liam Carver remains committed to advancing human potential. We regret the disruption in court and are focused on our mission." But the internet wasn't buying it, with Synapse users mocking the statement as damage control on steroids. steroids, Carver's other ventures felt the heat. 2. Synapse, already criticized for its role in spreading misinformation, saw advertisers pull back. Wary of associating with the Maverick's latest scandal, a leaked memo from a Synapse executive revealed panic. "We need to stabilize the platform's image, or we're toast." Carver's urban transit project, a network of futuristic tunnels, faced renewed scrutiny as critics pointed to its stalled progress. "Carver's tunnels are as empty as his promises," a blogger wrote, their post shared widely. The Maverick's empire, once untouchable, was showing cracks, but Carver's supporters refused to let him fall. Tech influencers, futurists, and even a few rogue politicians launched a counteroffensive using Stand With Carver to amplify his narrative. They shared videos of NeuroSync's early successes, patients regaining motor skills through brain implants, and Synapse's role in connecting global communities. A prominent AI researcher posted, "Carver's not perfect, but he's pushing boundaries no one else dares touch. Ellison's gavel can't stop progress." The video went viral, proving that Carver's base was bruised but unbroken. 4th Ham fan Margaret Ellison. The aftermath was a tightrope walk. The trial had thrust her into an unwelcome spotlight. With her every decision dissected by pundits and internet sleuths, supporters hailed her as a guardian of justice, with one Synapse post declaring, "Ellison showed billionaires they're not above the law." But Carver's allies painted her as a villain, accusing her of abusing power to silence a visionary. A viral thread, liked thousands of times, claimed Ellison planned to humiliate Carver to boost her reputation. The attacks grew personal, with some digging into her past rulings, framing her as anti-innovation. Ellison faced internal pressure. 2. Whispers of a closed-door meeting with senior judicial officials surfaced, with sources claiming it was a crisis summit. The footage of Carver's ejection went viral, and it's raising questions about judicial overreach. One insider leaked, there were shouts, threats. Some even suggested Ellison step back until the dust settles. The judge, known for her stoic demeanor, remained silent publicly. But colleagues reported she was shaken. "She's never seen anything like this," a clerk confided. Carver turned her court into a circus, and now she's the one on trial. The cultural impact was seismic. The Maverick's defiance became a lightning rod for debates about wealth, power, and accountability. Legal scholars weighed in, with one writing, "Carver's outburst exposed the tension between innovation and regulation. Can the law keep up with Mavericks, or will it crush them?" Activists seized the moment, launching campaigns like Ethics in Tech to demand oversight of companies like NeuroSync. Petitions circulated, calling for investigations into the company's trial practices, fueled by the leaked documents Hensley had presented. Carver, ever the strategist, didn't retreat. Holed up in his sleek penthouse, he convened his inner circle, lawyers, PR gurus, and Synapse engineers, to plot his counterattack. A week after the trial, he posted a cryptic Synapse message. "The system fears what it can't control. I'm just getting started." The post sparked a frenzy, with supporters cheering and critics rolling their eyes. Rumors swirled that he was planning a major NeuroSync announcement, perhaps a breakthrough in human trials, to regain control of the narrative. Others whispered he was preparing a legal salvo, targeting Ellison's conduct. Ellison, meanwhile, faced mounting scrutiny. A mysterious document leaked online, allegedly showing communications between her office and political operatives before the trial, though unverified. It suggested she'd been pressured to make an example of Carver, sparking outrage. Headlines like "Is Ellison hiding the truth?" flooded news feeds, and late-night hosts piled on. With one joking, Ellison thought she was judging Carver, but now the internet's judging her. Legal watchdogs called for an ethics probe, and petitions demanding transparency gained traction. The drama reached its zenith when Carver was granted a final statement before a judicial review committee. The courtroom, once again packed, buzzed with anticipation. Carver entered alone. No legal team, just a single sheet of paper in his hand. His suit was sharp, and his demeanor was calm yet electric. Ellison, presiding over the hearing, stared at him coldly, her gavel at the ready. The nation watched. Live feeds streaming across Synapse and beyond. Carver stepped to the podium, his voice soft but commanding. "I didn't come here to fight the law," he began, "but to ask why it punishes those who dare to dream." He recounted his journey, not as a boast, but as a testament to the discomfort innovation brings. Neurosync heals minds. Synapse gives voices. My tunnels will free cities, but progress makes people nervous, and nervous people build cages. The room was silent, and even Ellison was motionless. Then, unfolding his paper, Carver looked directly into the cameras. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about every dreamer told to sit down, every voice silenced for asking the wrong question in the right room. If defiance is a crime, then I'm guilty and proud." Gasps echoed, and a woman in the gallery wiped tears from her eyes. Carver leaned closer to the mic, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You can remove me from your courtroom, Judge Ellison, but history has already judged you." The room exploded. Journalists rushed to file updates, their phones buzzing with notifications. Synapse lit up with Carver final words, clips of his speech spreading like wildfire. Major outlets interrupted programming to air the moment, with pundits calling it the most audacious courtroom speech in history. Even Carver's critics admitted he'd struck a chord, turning a personal defeat into a universal rallying cry. Ellison, visibly rattled, cleared her throat. "This hearing is adjourned," she said. Her voice strained, but the damage was done. A public opinion poll, released a few days later, showed that 68% of respondents sided with Carver, with many praising his stance on free speech. Discussions about judicial reform gained momentum, with lawmakers proposing laws to increase transparency in the courtroom. Neurosync's stock, defying predictions, began to recover, buoyed by Carver's defiant narrative. For Ellison, the fallout was brutal. A formal ethics inquiry was launched, her every ruling now under a microscope. Colleagues whispered that her career hung in the balance, with some urging her to step down, yet she remained defiant, issuing a rare statement. "My duty is to the law, not to public opinion. I stand by my actions." The words, meant to project strength, only fueled the fire, with Synapse users mocking her as the judge who lost to a billionaire. Carver, meanwhile, emerged as a paradox, a flawed hero, a reckless visionary, a man both adored and reviled. He left the courtroom without another word, his message already etched into the zeitgeist. The Maverick's defiance wasn't just a moment, it was a mirror, reflecting a world grappling with the cost of progress and the limits of power. As the echoes of his rebellion pulsed through every post, every debate, one question lingered. Would Carver's defiance reshape the future, or would it be his undoing? The world watched, breathless, for the answer.